During stress or fight or flight, your body's not worried about letting the species continue with procreation, falling in love, having babies, having good testosterone, having good estrogen, having good thyroid. It's not worrying about that stuff. It's worried about right now defending myself or running away. It will not create all those hormones. It will not give that much to the brain to problem solve. What happens is even the smallest amount of food gets put into storage to be called on in an emergency. When you're in fight or flight, suddenly all that is low priority and you have to store. That's why my patients who are constantly being stressed, they'll even cut back their food sources down to 1,000 calories a day and still gain weight, because you have to store that for the fight or flight reaction. So this is why it's so important to practice some form of relaxation practice. Even if you don't feel that you're being threatened with your life, the smaller stressors that you come up with every day, the extensive amounts of problem solving, the travel that a lot of people go through, the work environment, the school environment, the getting through a cold, taking care of a baby that's crying, filling up your gas tank and knowing that it's going to be expensive, all those are mini stressors. With enough mini stressors, you will be in fight or flight. And then everything will be converted this way. So that's not healthy. It might be good for the short run, but it's going to be, you're going to be paying in the long run with obesity, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and diabetes. So this is why it is important when you get to your doctor's office to consider techniques to help you with stress management. And I have several videos on mindfulness practice, 4-7-8 breathing, hiking for health that are important and you can kind of touch on. Exercise is always important. Remember, you have to keep up with activity. Even if you're very, very busy, you still have to do something. I like the combination of resistance exercises and endurance exercises. Whatever it is, just get out and do it. Sometimes you might have to have somebody coach you. You're better off having a coach. I always insist on either a physical therapist or a trainer in the field to be my eyes. As far as the nutrition thing, in this short amount of time I'll give you a little bit of information, but you should hire a nutritionist, a registered dietitian, or something of a life coach. I think it'd be helpful. When you come to see me, I'll usually make sure that you're taking in enough fiber. This is psyllium from organic India. This is a cheap way to get extra fiber in. I'd like you to do it with whole food if you can. Farro, spelt, millet, quinoa, rice, they're all about the same. These are whole grains. These are the whole grains before they get pulverized and put into bread. I don't think bread is that great. If you can avoid it, better off. Whether it's gluten-free or not, I'd rather have you take it in this form. You'll have more satiety with whole grains. And when you go to your doc's office, you should at least start off by looking for deficiency. Most of my patients are low on magnesium, so I'm a big proponent to magnesium supplementation. I try to maximize on magnesium. Magnesium aspartate gets in easier and doesn't affect the gut as much. Magnesium L-threonate, also fantastic. I use this more if you have sleep disorder. I use it at night. I try to maximize as much as possible without causing problems with the gut. With taking care of magnesium levels, diabetes medicine works better. In Chicago, I think most of my patients are low on vitamin D, so I say vitamin D3. And I found any brand will really make a difference. And I would continue through the summer of Chicago, since any place north of Georgia doesn't really get the rays of sun optimized to the point where you can take in and have your body convert vitamin D. I also maximize on fish oil as best as possible. 3.5 grams per day up to 4 grams per day. And you have to read the labels. If you watch my video on omega-3 oil, you'll see. You can take the whole food form better off, but 1 can, which is about 3.5 ounces of sardines, is only equal to a gram of omega-3 fish oil. And again, I suggest at least 2 grams once to twice a day. So you'll be eating a lot of fish. But I use this mostly to try to push a Mediterranean diet. Mediterranean diets are anything that takes advantage of whole foods, fish, poultry. You limit the red meat if you can, and obviously fruits, vegetables, grains, legumes, nuts as best as possible. A wide variety of mostly whole food, plant-based products. I think that protein is also important. And I will usually tell my patients to manipulate their protein sources to be mostly protein-dominant meals in the morning and maybe at lunchtime, and mostly carbohydrate-dominant meals towards evening. I think that'll help you keep awake, which is a big problem with a lot of patients. We're pushing the envelope with work, and we're not getting enough sleep, or meditation, or downtime. So I really embrace trying to get proper sleep. Again, if you do the basics and look for deficiency, that'd be the first step. There's also the next step, which includes alpha-lipoic acid, L-carnitine. Sometimes I'll go with cinnamon, sometimes I'll go with fenugreek. But these I would usually wait until you maximize on the first building blocks. And at this point in this practice I'm in, I've had patients still working on their deficiencies, so I haven't really pushed the envelope with the herbals just yet. Now, speaking of stress and fight or flight, there are techniques that help you, because you're going to be faced with driving home, passing by fast food stores, seeing on TV, especially those of you who use TV as a relaxation. You'll see a commercial every 10 minutes, and it'll be usually on food, drugs, or something insignificant, but it'll make you tempted. I had a taste of my son's ice cream, vanilla ice cream, the other day, and it was after eating my dinner. I had a small bowl full, and I was surprised because in about half an hour I really wanted some more, and I was full already, but the taste of the sugar in my mouth made me hunt and think about having more. There's something in the formulation of the food industry and the fast food places that really tries to get you to be a frequent flyer. So you have an industry that's built on billions of dollars that's trying to get you to be addicted to food. So you gotta be grounded, and the easiest thing is to not even enter into that. That's why techniques like kara hachibu, techniques like brushing your teeth and gargling after eating will usually help you fight that craving feeling, that unsatiated feeling of going back for seconds. Not eating family style will also help, because if you have a big plate in front of you and you're talking and engaged in conversation, or you're watching TV, which you shouldn't be watching TV, you might go easily for the second, third, or fourth helping. Having the main dish away from you is probably a good idea. Cooking just specifically for the amount that usually you guys eat, throwing away, which is wasting, but throwing away all the leftovers, or at least putting them away in Tupperware and putting them in the fridge, so it would be a little bit of work to reopen things. Making the bad food hard to get to and the good food easy to get to. Good fruits and vegetables open and available on the counter. Bad foods tucked away underneath or in the back of the fridge. Sometimes at the end of your meal, when you're thinking about or contemplating second or third servings, if you just take 10 minutes and you engage in conversation, you get up and walk, usually the urge to eat will be quieted down. And that's with the actions of ghrelin from the stomach hitting the brain, which takes about 10 to 15 minutes, and telling the brain, I'm satiated. Same thing with the leptin from the fat cells. It takes a little bit of time before all those hormones from down here, after you've eaten, get to the brain to say stop. Walking away, very important. Brushing your teeth, very important. Keeping food out of sight, very important. Engaging in conversation. One of the most important points is when my patients try to lose weight, they try to cut back on the total calories per day, which is a way. I don't think it's the best way, but sometimes when you do that, you'll cut out a meal. And the gut and the brain are always talking to each other, even if you don't experience hunger. If you eat something in the morning, and you get to the point of satiety, it usually will tide over the brain and the stomach for about 4 to 6 hours. If you eat something again, high protein, high fat, high fiber, it'll usually take a little bit of time to digest, and it'll give you some time before the next meal. If you cut that volume down, if you juice most of your meals, then you might not be getting the satiety sensations or hormones from the gut hitting the brain. It'll not necessarily make you hungry, but it'll make you irritable. It'll make your problem solving a little slower. It'll make you more emotionally unstable, so that eventually, if there's bad food around, you're going to make the wrong decisions. So that's why it's very important to have the mechanics of food and knowing about macronutrients and how they affect you. You utilize them throughout your day. So just cutting back to one meal a day and having a cup of coffee, in the short run, you might cut appetite and you might get by with losing a couple pounds, but the majority of people and humans out there cannot survive on that kind of food. You always have to maintain your hydration. A lot of people don't drink. Drinking in ounces, half of your kilo weight is important, but not too late at night, because I don't want you all peeing. In addition to meditation, mindful practice, it'll prepare you for those times when you become weak, or those times when you have to make a decision on a good food versus a bad food, or you're hungry and you don't feel like making things. If you have a very good, well-grounded relaxation practice, you'll be able to survive those little battles. It is just that. You have to reinvent yourself. Even if you are 30, 40, or 50, and you're doing okay, you're running your business, you have a good family, when you have a diagnosis of diabetes, I expect you to reinvent yourself. You shouldn't go back to what you relied on before, whether it was an exercise routine, a way of dieting, a way of relaxing. I think that you have to reinvent that because all the things that you did before got you to this place now. I don't think it's just age, because I have a lot of 70 to 80-year-olds that don't have diabetes and they don't really take care of themselves. I still think it's the late onset of damage you accumulated when you weren't concerned about eating or relaxation or exercise. Eventually your body does pay. It's okay, you just have to not get any worse, because one guarantee I can give you is that if you come up with a diagnosis, whether it's me or another provider, and now you have a pre-diabetes or an early diabetes diagnosis, you're going to get older, you're going to get bigger, you're going to get weaker, and the disease will get worse. I did have a patient who came in and he was a diabetic for about 20 years. He didn't want to do anything because he felt that he was fine with just taking his 3 medicines. But I pointed out to him, in the first couple of years of his diagnosis, he used 1 medicine, and that controlled it. But then, in the next couple of years of his diagnosis, he needed 2 medicines. And when I saw him and he wanted just to refill on his medicines, he's up to 3 different medicines and he's just barely covering his sugar. I tried to point that out to him, that even if he's active, even if he thinks that he's well grounded, even if he thinks that he's watching his food, the disease is marching on. So the next step after 3 medicines is usually insulin. So I told him that if he wants to go in that direction, it's not a problem, but I would offer him a different way. There should be no harm in admitting that you're a diabetic. The harm I see is when you're just given prescription medicines and you're not told how to change your life. There is no one formula for changing lives, but I think if you have a doctor that's listening, he should be able to kind of figure out where your weaknesses are, where your strengths are, and design something. You try it for a short time. If it works, you keep on adding to it. If it doesn't work, you redesign it. Another patient that came in, very good with his exercise, very good with his carbohydrate knowledge, his macronutrient knowledge, his food intake, but he was totally stressed out. And this is where the stress part comes in. I mentioned it already, but if you don't have a relaxation practice, a mindfulness practice, and you're just relying on medicines, a tight nutrition practice, and a good amount of exercise, eventually I think that's going to catch up with you. Your stress response as we get older also ages too. We become less tolerant. And as that occurs, you'll notice that with the same food intake, with the same activity level, with the same medicines, sugars still keep on climbing, or accumulated damage keeps on coming up. The other piggyback diagnoses in addition to diabetes will be your waistline and body mass index in addition to cholesterol. And you let those things slide for a long enough amount of time, you're on your way to either heart failure, blindness, kidney failure, or a heart attack. The message I'm trying to get to you is really try to understand the disease process, try to reinvent yourself by investing in getting help. If you see me every once in a while, I think I'll do my best to take care of you, but we need help the old-fashioned way. The help would be in the form of having outside coaches. So a coach for the activity, a coach for the nutrition, and a coach for the relaxation practice. Get enough people in your area, you'll have an army behind you, and you'll be bulletproof till you're 90 to 100 years of age.